Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Yes, I'm so thrilled to be having this conversation because we just met a few months ago and I feel like I know you already. So
Oh,
I want to have you tell my audience about you and get to know all of your goodness and expertise. So I'll turn it over to you to say hello.
ah, thank you, Karen. I know it feels like I've known you forever. So yeah, I really appreciate being in the space and getting to have the conversation again, just to talk to you. So, okay. So hi, everybody. So my name is Hollis Citron and who am I? So
A big question.
a big question. So I guess the short version of it, as much as I'll say right now before we dive in, is as far as jobs go, I've been an art teacher for 30 years in many different kinds of settings, both traditional and non-traditional. So non-traditional meaning homeless shelters, artists in residencies, professional developments, my own businesses, to more traditional being public, private, and charter schools. I'm from Philadelphia. I've lived on the West Coast. I'm back on the East Coast. I've been here and we've lived in New York, and now we're in New Jersey for almost 20 years. And about 3 years ago, I kind of had my FU 51s in realizing that I was more than halfway there. And I was like, you know what? Talking to my husband, of course, about this, I'm like, I need to, I've predominantly worked in underserved communities. I'm like, love who I'm working with, love the mission of everything that I want to do, but I need to change. Like, because my health is, and especially when she was 15 at the time, she looked at me and said, who are you mad at? Like,
Wow.
are you mad at me? Are you mad at your job? Are you like, who are you mad at? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not showing up for them.
Mm,
I'm not showing up for me, most importantly, to be like the kind and higher vibe person I want to be. I'm not showing up for my husband, and I'm not showing up for the people that I really want to connect with. So anyway, so I started my companies. I am creative, and then Express Yourself Publishing. And my mission is just all about expanding the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush and empowering people to own their voices and talents. I've been saying this for 30 years in
wow.
all of the spaces that I've taught. And I've realized, you realize those culminations,
Yeah,
that's
for
all
sure.
leading to this point. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, I want to talk about, well, first of all, tell us about the FU's 51, just to make sure that everybody's clear that that's not code for someone who may not get it. So I want to phone in on that.
Okay. So on what should I say the whole thing? Can I
No,
curse?
no, I'd rather not have you curse.
Yeah.
I think so. Just tell us about what that means to you
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
little bit, like dive a little bit deeper into that because I think that there's some really good, juicy stuff in there.
Yeah. Thank you. So basically, you reach 50 and it's kind of like, unless you're living to 100, which could happen, you realize there's a halfway point. Maybe the halfway point might have been 40, but it's like at 50, you're kind of like, okay, like enough of this.
Hmm.
Enough of every day stressing about worrying about this. Am I good enough? Like, did I do a good enough job? Did I, this, that, just everything. And I don't feel good right now. I don't feel healthy. I don't feel, my stress levels are way too high. And I just got to a point where I was like I said, more than halfway there. And I want to use the time in a way that makes me feel good. Not saying that every day is a party and every day is, but I want to use it in a way where it's going more towards what my goals are, what my purpose is.
Yeah, that's so great. Was there a moment that you could include us in when you had this kind of, was there a turning point where you said, this is it? Or was it a multiple events that current state or not current, but kind of state?
I think it was, I mean, like I said, my daughter saying that to me was a big eye
Yeah,
opener.
big. Mm.
That was like a big, like, huh, yeah. Going to work every day. There were days that were great. And there were days that I was just kind of like, why am I comparing myself to people all the time that behaviorally, there's so many discipline issues and
Mm.
so much is about behavior. It's like, am I not good enough? Like,
Mm.
A fight just broke out, again in the room. Well, there's lots of reasons why that could happen. There were things that happened before they entered the room. There's just so many things, a domino effect that go into things. But then I'd be like, am I not good enough? Do I not have enough control over them? Do they not respect me? Do they not? So
Mm.
even after doing this for all these years, I was just to a point where I'm like, I am so sick of questioning myself.
Uh-huh.
And even though I've heard like so many positive things, and so I was like, I'm just sick, like it's hurting me physically because I'm holding on to it with
Mm.
every fiber of my being, and it's affecting my health.
Yeah. And holding on to, specifically, just to be clear, what were you holding on to? The negative thoughts?
The negative thoughts and am I good enough?
Yeah. Why do you think that is? I mean, this is such an epidemic.
Right.
And I mean, the other thing that I find fascinating is that you would think by the time we're 40 and 50 that we wouldn't care anymore. Like what does it need to take? And then on the flip side, 20 something people that I'm also in contact with, that I talk with, I'm amazed. I kind of thought, oh, well, at least their generation then will not have this problem. And yet it's there too. And I know this is a big issue, but let's talk about you if you're willing. What do you
Yeah.
think it is for you that caused that doubt to happen? Was there anything in particular?
I think it's a deep issue. I think a lot of things go back to, I hate to be like, oh, how we were raised and da da da. But
It's true.
the words that do get put into our heads, um, we absorb them. And even if I have had very loving parents, very supportive parents. Again, not always a party all the time, but they're very good people that have always supported me and everything. There was sarcasm in things. There were things that I didn't necessarily like, and some things that were, and it's, as we get older, we kind of make a point not to do that to our children.
Right,
It's like,
right.
I'm not going to do that because I really didn't like that. Um, but I don't know. It's like we really do form these things really young,
Yeah.
these ideas. I was very shy. I was very quiet, but was always I was always standing up for the underdog
Mm.
when I was like, because I have a handicapped brother.
Okay.
So I was always like, my mom worked for in Philly in underserved population. So it's kind of like I was always kind of around, like, stand up for the underdog.
Right.
Um, and for me, I just kind of, I don't know, I just always kind of question myself in that shy, well, am I good enough? Do I want to, will people hear me? I was always really tiny.
Mhm.
I would blush and get really flushed. So that kind of wanted me to hide even more. But then it kind of got to a point like now, where I am now in life, it really is like you said, I'm so much more in a space. There's less of that voice in my head that's saying
Mhm.
you're not good enough.
Mhm.
It's quieter
Yeah.
because it's gotten to a point that I'm really honed in on what my purpose is and
Ooh.
what I'm passionate about, that I'm like, you know what? It's not about me, Hollis.
Mhm.
It's bigger than me. It's a purpose to be able to reach other people, to empower them.
Yes. Well, and yeah,
That feels good.
you and I are so aligned on that. And for me too, when I quit my job, I knew that I wanted to work with women to help them overcome self-doubt. But it wasn't until about a year after the official quitting of my job and getting into the weeds of my business and trying to figure out, what is my why? What is the purpose? And to get to a point where I feel like I want to reach 10 million women to overcome self-doubt and speak with confidence. And then that's such an incredible driver, in a way, even more than I would have thought. And isn't it great how when we focus on these things, the other stuff just kind of washes away? And when you feel, I mean, I spent so much of my career worried about what other people thought. And was I good enough? Oh, did that sound good? Oh, did they not like me? Is this idea popular? Oh, is it unpopular? Or did I rock the boat? I mean, all of these voices in my head, and I've come to learn even more. I mean, frankly, being involved with Clubhouse this past year pretty obsessively has taught me that it was very sobering. On one hand, it was very empowering for me personally to have a voice there and really show my expertise. On the other hand, the thousands of women that are still doubting themselves is astonishing to me. And it's easy when you can sit in your own world. I'll speak for myself in my own little world and think, oh, we're making so many strides. And I'd still say we are. And yet there's so much more work to be done, which then fuels me to be even more passionate about it. And I'd love to hear more about your purpose and what fuels you specifically just to keep you going every day.
Want to give people a voice. I mean, I want to, like, we have like similar goals in that way. And I love what you said about there being a goal, because I totally agree that it's kind of like, if you don't have that kind of structure in a sense of what you're aiming for, then there's a lot of kind of like, what am I doing? When there's a time for me where I'm like, what am I doing? And that's kind of like the brainstorming and the brain dump session, where I don't always have to know, because that's where kind of like new ideas come in, drop in. But there is that idea of the bigger goal of, like you said, you want to reach 1 million women. I don't have a number on it, but I want to, originally, actually, when I left my job, I was like, I am going to build a creativity center where underserved youth can come to this space and be immersed in creative outlets, in whatever that looks like. It's not just visual arts. It's writing, it's yoga, it's music, it's cooking, it's all these different forms. It's filmmaking. It's all of these spaces where they can just realize that this is why I have my podcast. How do you define what creativity is? It's, what does that mean to you? It's that magical spark. It's the courage. I want to create a space where people, and it's now the idea for the larger goal has expanded beyond that. It's really, I mean, it's needed for everybody, but that was my original population, to be able, because people, I want people to feel safe.
Uh,
I
you
want
and I
people,
are so aligned. Yes, say more about that.
I want people to feel, I mean, that's always what the classroom or any setting that I've ever had is about. Even now, going into the publishing house, and I am creative, doing one-on-ones, doing group sessions, being safe is obviously what we know is what's important, because when people feel safe, they can then trust, they can then be expressive, they can then connect to themselves, they can connect to others, and they're more open to being aware and doing a deeper dive into themselves. If people don't feel safe, then they're not going to say anything or do anything. They're going to put walls up. They're going to put boundaries up.
Yeah.
It's kind of that simple.
It is so simple, and yet it's amazing how many people, and I will say for myself, just living in my own prison of not speaking up and being so worried about what everybody thought. I mean, my dad was pretty controlling and my mom was pretty submissive in the home. She was a rock star in the community and she did a lot of leadership things and that, but it's the home where I really realized, oh, okay, you have to ask for permission from a man to do something. And you don't speak up, because if you do, you might get the silent treatment or you might be judged. And it's really, I mean, I hate to say it's fascinating, but I am fascinated by the way that we are shaped through our upbringing and how, and then deciding, obviously we can't control what happened to us as kids, but we can
Right.
control what we're going to choose to do with that as an adult. And I kind of, it's not the same story, but that moment for me when I realized this is, this is so ridiculous. I don't know what it was. I was probably in my mid 40s. I don't even know the exact age that I was, but I will never forget sitting in a leadership meeting, doing something because my boss mentioned that we should do it. And I took it on. And then I never really felt like it was the right thing to do, or not that it was a wrong thing, but it was more of, this doesn't seem right. And there I was in this meeting and everybody looking at me, and even though they were my peers, I could not really speak well. And I thought, what is wrong? And she had to swoop in and say, hey, why don't we table this? And she said it in the nicest way, but she pulled me aside after that. And she said, this is another example where you didn't trust your gut. You knew that this probably didn't feel right. So why didn't you say something? And she said, you could have said something like, hey, just like she didn't, she's very, like, she doesn't shove things in people's faces. But the point that I heard was, if I could have just said, hey, you know what? I don't even remember. We were talking about this months ago. I'm not sure why we're doing it. Let's table it. And I remember having this aha moment of, oh, I could have done that. I was so fixated, to your point, not feeling safe. Like, I'm so fixated on, I have to do this the right way, that if I say something different, then I'm going to not be accepted. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really, does somebody feel like they're going to be rejected or not?
Right.
What to me, it's all about that. Like, I don't think people would naturally respond to that, because when I've asked that question, like in polls, are you afraid of being rejected? People don't usually say that, but when you peel back the layers, it's like, it's really what it is, right?
It's all about that. It's all about, yeah. I just like, first, I want to kind of bring to the point where you said, when she was speaking, what you heard her say. And I think that's so much because we have our filters and we all have our own perspectives. We all have our own versions of the story. It's like, a crime scene. You ask two people and they have two different versions because they heard and saw two different things. It's like we filter out certain things and bring our own biases and all of that into it. So I just think that's a really important point to what you said. And I just got a vision too of when you were saying about wanting to do the right thing, like when I would be observed. So, first observation, we would know when they were going to come in. And the second, we wouldn't know when they were going to come in. So they would just come into the class at any point. They might give you like a window to say it's going to be on this day, but you never know which class. You're just like, oh my God, I hope it's not after lunch. I hope it's not, oh my God. But then I started to get to a point of, I don't care. It's just, it is what it is. I can't control every situation. I can't control 25 children in my class. I can set up a space where I have our structure, our routines, and what we do. And I have my behavioral things that I can do in place, but I can't control every situation. So I did get to a point to where, we'd have the meeting of how did you do? And I actually would just go in, I'd say, tell me what I need to fix. Like, just tell me, I don't want to hear all the points of everything that I did wrong. I'm like, just tell me what to fix and then we can move on.
Oh my gosh.
And one of my bosses was like, she just started laughing. She said, I do have positive things to say.
Isn't it funny though? We're so wired to look for the things that we did, air quotes, wrong.
Let's just skip it because I'm already stressed about it. I've been thinking about how I screwed up for all this time and what I could have done better. So let's just move on and call it a day.
We are so hard on ourselves.
So
well, I want to hear how creativity, I mean, obviously that's your whole thing. And how has that played a role in your life beyond the obvious? Anything you would be willing to share about that, or how it's made a difference for you?
It's expression. I define creativity as expression. So expression coming in lots of different ways, in how I present myself visually, and how I speak my truth and express my ideas, and how I did go to art school and I do have visual art forms that I practice. So when I'm actually engaged in my visual arts, which now is actually more collage, and I went to school undergrad for clay. I studied ceramics for 3 years, and I have my master's in art education and all that kind of stuff. But clay and I have kind of had a love-hate relationship. And yeah, we kind of had a love-hate relationship. But when I wasn't in an expressive way within a visual medium, of whatever that was, I found that I wasn't in the best place because I wasn't, all of these ideas, we're creators, we're meant to express. So all these ideas are kind of going on all the time and they weren't being justified. Not meaning that everybody has to see them. It could be just for me. So I wasn't letting them out. I was repressing it. So I found that when I'm repressing it, I don't feel good. And I'm crankier. I'm more disconnected. I don't relate as well to others, especially the people closer to me. I can put on a mask, and for the people that don't know me, but the people that I'm closer with, I can be a little moodier with.
Right.
Because of all of that.
Yes, the familiarity piece. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what we do. It's again being in a safe space. But yeah, I mean, I found for me that creativity has really been in understanding like these different aspects of it, that various circumstances that have presented along life, I've learned lessons and I've learned how to use my voice more in a way that's more empowering to show up visually and be able to say, you know what, I actually I like my hair this way, or I actually care that I want to have it this way, or that I want to dress in a certain way because that is how I feel and it expresses, more emotion and matching who I am on the outside to the inside. That's what I'm working on, is matching the outer
Yes.
to the inside, because I haven't gotten to that point and my 18-year-old is on it to help me with that. I'm like, Skylar,
How does
help
she know?
me.
So tell me, what does she do to keep you accountable to that?
She's going to go shopping with me, and she's kind of very mean. So in some ways, I love her. Like she's I think she was my mom in another life, but yeah. She'll grab something and she'll hold it up and she'll say, try this on. I'm like, I don't like it. She's like, try it on. I'm like, okay. She's like, the whole point is to go outside of what you're normally doing, right? Like you're sick of what you're doing. I'm like, yes. And then when she does my makeup, which hasn't been for a little bit, but when she does my makeup, yeah, she kind of yells at me, but she's good at doing it.
Hilarious. So what has felt different for you when you've gone shopping with her and you've put on the outfits? Have you had some revelations related to that, or surprises?
Just she'll pick out some things where I'm like, oh, I actually like that. I didn't expect to like that. Or especially, you know what she said, which is, I'll be like, my boobs are too big, or I got this roll in my stomach, or she goes, I actually listen to you. She's like, here you are being down on yourself all the time. And she's like, I hear you. I learn from you. I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
Wow, that just gave me goosebumps. That is,
like, I'm sorry. She's like, stop being so mean to yourself. She's like, why are you so mean to yourself? I was like, I don't know. I just look in the mirror and I'm like, I don't like these societal things. Like, but then, it's like you look at it and it's like, yes, I have these roles. I did have 2 children. It's not an excuse to say that I couldn't exercise more, but we've heard this before. It's like, but embrace what your body has done for you.
yes.
Embrace getting up every day. Embrace the fact that I can walk, and that, all these gratitude lists, instead of looking in the mirror and saying, oh, I have like these bags under my eyes, and now when I smile, I have like these wrinkles. Well, you know what? I'm 54 years old.
Sorry, that just hit me. That is really funny. I remember my mom used to say, she was personally against dyeing her hair. And she said, I earned every single one of these gray hairs. She was a great example of aging gracefully.
It's true.
I just laughed. That's just so hilariously, it's so obviously hilarious. I don't even know how to say it, but it's true. It's like, why are we trying to be a certain age or look something different? And doesn't that just all speak to how we always do feel like we want to fix or change something about ourselves? And I think the power really comes when we truly love and accept ourselves for exactly who we are in this moment. And
Yes.
it's hard. I don't know. Have you had moments that you can remember thinking about confidence? Have you had, I'm sure you have, but what I would love is for you to bring us into a moment where you've really felt in your zone of genius, or where you felt, gosh, I really like the way I look today or in this moment. And that would be a fun thing for us to hear.
I mean, I have felt that way. We get these glimpses of those moments, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to think of a particular moment, and a particular moment isn't jumping into my head right now, to be
Yeah.
honest, but I can
Yeah.
say that there are those glimpses of moments where it's like, ah, but I feel so good, or I feel so confident, and I
Yes.
love these shoes, and these pants actually look really good on me, and I like this
Hmm.
color, and my hair, it took a few days for the hairstyle to like grow in, but now it looks really good. And I love these earrings, and it's finding those moments, which shouldn't just be moments.
Right.
Like, they
Right.
shouldn't be like these glimpses. Not, I mean, it's not always rainbows and butterflies, but it's having more of the I feel good,
Yes. Yes.
because when you do, then as we know, like we exude, we have more connection, and so much more opens up
Yeah.
to us when we are in that space. I don't know. I just felt this need to just, I had a download for a story to share. Um, so I had, back in 91, I think it was, I had an artist in residency at a clay studio. And in my head, I was like, my worst nightmare is that there's going to be like 15 to 20 people in a circle staring at me, asking me questions. We had to bring our portfolio and da da da. Well, there was like 14 people sitting in a circle staring at me
What?
when I got there. So,
Oh my gosh.
and I got there and I'm like, oh my God, okay. My nightmare has, at the time, thinking like my nightmare just like materialized. Like, here they're like firing questions at me about, why I should be in the space. Da, da, da. I'm turning purple. I'm showing, my work and answering the questions, blah, blah, blah. I left and I was just like, well, I just bombed that. Like, that sucked.
Oh,
And I got the space. Like, they brought me in. I got a call like a few hours later and was like, we'd love to have you in the space. Da, da, da. So I guess I just bring that up. It's like this perception, kind of going back to like how we see it and how others see it.
yes.
We are the hardest on ourselves. Nobody cared what color my face was turning. Obviously, it didn't affect the decision of being in a space. They chose me for the reasons that they chose me.
Hmm.
So it's just interesting how, such a waste of time. And that's the thing of wanting to teach. It's like in having kids, it's like I want our kids to learn it at a younger age and not have to be 50 to be still doubting yourself, like to the extent that you do, where it's harmful.
Yeah. And I love how you brought up the moments as well earlier too, just about, yeah, I feel good, I'm wearing this or that. And the other thing that strikes me about your story is a concept I like to call it disparity, of how, like, the disparity gap of how we think we're coming across versus
Mhm.
how we actually are. And how fascinating it is that we can have all of these thoughts in our heads, and objective reality says something very different. And you may
Love
know
it.
some of the work that I do is on video with people. And a lot of the work actually that I do is on video. So I record them, we play it back. Of course, everybody, the first thing people look at is, oh, I hated this. And it's like, no, no, no. It's kind of like what the mentor person said to you, that I actually have some compliments for you or some good things. And I always like to start there because it forces people to almost, they're almost surprised when I say, what did you like? And they say, oh, I hated how my hands looked, or I hated how whatever. And it's like, well, wait, what did you like? What did this person do well? Let's try to make it objective and say it like that. And that's one of the things I also find really powerful about video coaching, is that you see the actual reality. But it is so hard sometimes to get out of that gap of, yeah, like, could we at one point, could we someday be aligned with how we feel and how we are on the outside? To me, that's my personal goal, because for too long I spent way too much time just having some ideas. Like, I have to say, I didn't have imposter syndrome per se as an epidemic in my life. Like, I know a lot of people feel it a lot, but for me, I felt like, I know I've got good things to share. I should be here. But then this holding back because of what are they going to think, and the judgment and all of that. So I'd love to go back
Mm.
to, I'd love to ask you, or sorry, any reflections on that? I know
I
I'm,
just want to say your work is so important. I mean, it's so important what you're doing. And I just love everything that you're saying, especially with that capturing people on video and really getting people past the point of all the things that they don't like, but being objective.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh, God, it's everything.
it is. And it's so hard. I mean, it's so hard. And I'm the same way. I look at myself like, oh my gosh, I got to fix that and change that. And it's just crazy. Well, why don't we talk about your book? Because well, our book, if I can
Our
say that.
book,
I'm
our
part of
book,
the book. I'm part of the book.
you are
So
part of the
yeah,
book.
so tell, I mean, well, okay, you start, because I'm so excited about it, but I don't want to say, you start, and then I want to share my perspective on being a part of it.
Okay. So, love multi-author books. So, my publishing house is called Express Yourself Publishing, and just passionate about people sharing their stories and having a space and a stage in order to do that. So, this is going to reach people all over the world. So, the title, Invisible No More, Stepping into the Spotlight, means so many different things to people. Like, it just has different versions. It's about trauma, some it's about, worthiness, some it's about, they really just kept themselves small
Mhm.
for a long time. There's just many reasons. It could be cultural. It could be, there's just lots of different stories and takes on it. So it's just about hearing all of these different perspectives and giving people a space to do that. And please, I want to hear your perspective on it, because I'm so happy that you're a part of it.
I am too. Well, I think it's so funny how these moments, I call them divine moments, where I'm hardly even on Facebook. It's like here and there. I mean, I am, but I'm not. It's you know how it is. There's so many groups that were that you're inundated with. And to think that I saw your post on Brains Magazine uh, Facebook group, and I'm, again, not on there very much. So the fact that I saw it, then we connected, and all of a sudden here we are. So
Yeah.
when you went, boy, the title, I just immediately connected with that, because as I'm, side note, I'm writing my own book right now. And the invisible part was funny, because I was writing something the other day, and I even asked the question, thinking about the question that I had as a child, like, was I just invisible? Because one of my big stories when I was 13 was that I wrote my dad a letter, because I thought, I can't reach him verbally. What if I wrote him a letter and poured out my heart to him and said, I don't understand why we're not close. What did I do? What can I do better? Of course, I was taking all this ownership as a 13-year-old kid, and he never opened it. My mom would make the bed every morning, put it back on his pillow, and finally, after 2 weeks, she couldn't take it anymore, and she opened it herself, which defeated the purpose completely. I didn't want her to feel bad, because I'm sure as a mom, seeing your little daughter who's just desperately trying to connect with a man you don't even really connect with exactly. And I mean, just really, that, I don't think I realized how profound that was until very recently, actually, because it really made me wonder, not just does my voice matter, but the
Mm.
bigger question that I really believe we're all asking is, do I matter? And I I don't know. But it was so interesting though, because that whole thing happened for me. That whole thing. I mean, the one trajectory of my life, or one thread that has run throughout it all, is that little girl wondering, do I matter? Am I good enough? I want to make sure that people like me and I please everybody. Then there's this other thread that interestingly enough, my dad 100% affected. I mean, my mom too, but he taught me that you can get anything you want with enough persistence, determination, and asking. So I became incredibly confident professionally. But
Mm,
the problem was, I didn't feel at my core that I alone, without my professional work, without providing value to people, that
right.
I was good enough, that I had value. And it was my husband, when we were dating, that said, because I started talking about my work, and he goes, um, you know that I actually love you just for who you are. Like, I don't really care about your accolades in the workplace. And that was such a powerful moment. So there's a lot of reasons why this book is really important to me. But to your point, much earlier in our conversation, when you were talking about it isn't about me. I mean, I just, Hollis, I'm so grateful we met. I mean, I really just mean that from the bottom of my heart. And it isn't about me anymore. It's now I feel like I've gotten to this point where I don't care like I did before. I mean, of course, I want people to like me, but I'm not dependent upon that to speak up anymore.
Yeah.
And that was such a huge empowering shift for me. That's what really shifted my mindset to go, I want to reach 10 million women. I believe that's possible. And when we all rally together, we can make that happen. And so this collaboration with you is furthering my mission, but I don't care where it happens. Like, it doesn't, I don't care if it's me. I just want to reach people. And I'm just one person. So if we can reach people, to like, that title is so powerful. And to think if that could be out there all over the world, that's one other avenue to help women be free. And I know it's not just women, but that's more of the population that I serve. But to think about how we live in a lot of these self prisons without even realizing it. And I didn't realize how much I was doing that and how much that crippled me throughout my life, even though professionally
Yeah.
one would say I was quite successful.
I have to say thank you so much for sharing what you shared. And everybody, this is why you're going to have to buy Invisible No More, stepping
Yeah,
into the spotlight when it comes
exactly.
out April 8th, because you have to hear Karen's story. But I mean, that is such a freaking powerful story. And
Yeah.
then when your husband addressed that and said, I love you for you, because all of this time you were looking to your dad, where acknowledge me. I want to create this connection. Like, do you see me, Karen?
Right. Right.
You see me, not being professional, Karen, that I have to do these things in order to then serve others and all the value, but do you see me for
Mhm.
who I am? And that is so frigging powerful. And it's a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
It's like when you realize, because it's like these little moments, again, little moments. It's like, it's these little moments that we realize about ourselves, or these little like triggers that we have, or um, there are multiple triggers that I have on things. And I'm like, why is that?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize that about myself. I didn't realize that I was like seeking this kind of acknowledgement, or again, like stemming from worthiness or being good enough.
Yeah.
So much of that is like the basis for everybody. And it kind of can show up in a different way,
Yeah.
where we kind of become smaller or angrier. It
Oh,
can,
that's really power. Isn't that truth? And
excuse me.
going back to Skylar, your daughter, I mean, that question, who are you mad at? That's I don't know. I'm speechless with that one.
She's a pretty smart cookie, I have to say.
It
And
sounds
it's
like it.
not because she's just, excuse me for 1 minute, I have to cough.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry.
No problem at all.
Yeah, I don't, it's not just because she's my daughter. She really does like have, and it's just interesting with her, because I'll say to her, you have so much confidence. You have so much for your age. And she's like, but I'm not. I'm like, are you serious?
Wow. That's that disparity gap, right?
I'm like, it is. I'm like, you present in such a different way because she's a force. She's
Okay.
kind of like her, she's an Aries. Like she's just like boom. Like her voice is loud, her voice is like, I'm here, and all of this kind of stuff. But yet it is the disparity because she has a different view of herself, which I'm glad she's talking about it now. So then
Yeah.
we can, even little things that I have to say, she won't listen to this, so it's okay. But like with weight issues,
Hmm.
she's a curvy girl, and a lot of her friends are tiny. But when we go to the doctor, for the longest time, she didn't want to go to the doctor. I'm like, babe, we don't go to the doctor all the time, but you need to get a checkup. Like we need to like get some things done. And then she finally broke down. She's like, I don't want to get on the scale.
Yeah. Oh,
And I was like, okay, well, I'll call the doctor and say you don't want to be weighed. You get to choose that.
yes. Amen to that.
So I
Absolutely.
called up the doctor and I'd say she really, it's a it sets her into a depression, and it's I don't want her weighed,
Hmm.
and she doesn't want to be weighed. And they said, okay, we'll put in her chart.
Excellent. Oh, I'm so glad they respected that.
But I think that's a thing too with confidence, just for being women. We often get that way of, we stop ourselves from doing things because of weight, because of how we think we look, because of all these things. And they're things that hold us back.
Yeah, for sure.
Other people
100%.
don't see us
Yeah.
that way.
I know it's so, and yeah, we think about, we've all heard the stories and we've experienced them ourselves. If you could look at a photo 10 years ago or something, you thought, oh, I thought I was so heavy then, or I thought, I didn't like that outfit. Then you look and go, wow, I look so good.
Oh, it's me. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's not it exactly at all how I thought. Well, we need to wrap up, Hollis. I wanted to ask you if there is let me back up. Is there a question that I haven't asked you that you would like me to ask?
no, I think we covered everything. Nothing I
Okay.
can think of.
Yeah. So tell us where everybody can reach you.
Thank you. So this has been so much fun.
It
So
has, I
thank
know.
you, Karen, and thank you everybody for listening. So my website, iamcreativephilly.com, is the best way to reach me. And if you're interested in being in this multi-author book, we have a few spaces left. And this baby's going to print like in March. So you have a few weeks. You can do this, and would love to have a chat with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been great to talk about self-doubt and more importantly, overcoming it, right?
There we go. It's a journey. So thank
Yes,
you.
it is. And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.